Hello, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Diz Unplugged, coming to you live from the Bob Varley Studio in Orlando, Florida. I'm your host, Pete Werner, joined at the table this week by my good friends Erica Resnick.
Hi, friends.
Kathy Whirling.
Hi, everybody.
Back in the production nook, our producer, Mr. Craig Williams.
Oh, hoy, hoy.
We're short a couple people this week. Scheduling issues.
Scheduling, illness, all the above. Panda's on vacation. It's a wild week for us.
Yeah, Panda's on the Wish right now, saying that, telling me that our reviews are watched very closely by their management. And our Enchanté review, if you haven't checked it out, youtube.com/DCLfan, our Enchanté review in particular, where I eviscerated them for that experience, really got a lot of attention. So it's nice to know that they're paying attention. Because look, and I'll cut them some slack. That was early on, right after the cruise had launched. I think the Enchanté review was maiden voyage.
Yeah.
So I'll cut them some slack. We'll see how it is. I'm back on the Wish again day after Thanksgiving, which should be fun because I have 30 people coming here for Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow.
Got a full house. Actually, I have an overflowing house because I have to have a tent and table and chairs put up outside so I can fit everybody.
Well, at least you know the weather's going to be, knock on wood, pretty decent.
Let's hope.
Not like
hope.
it's going to
You just
snow.
cursed me.
Yes,
You just
I
cursed
know.
me.
I know.
It was great weather the last time. We had it outdoors. It was slightly chilly. We all got to wear our jackets and felt like it was actually close to the winter season.
Yeah. Well, my house is already decorated for Christmas.
And I love it.
I'm just got to straighten up a little bit, but I'm ready. But before we get into the show, just a reminder, this show, along with all the content we produce, brought to you by DreamsUnlimitedTravel.com. And I am one of the owners, along with John Magi and Donna Lefevre, of Dreams Unlimited. If you like our content and you want to show your support, the best way to do it is to book your next Disney vacation with Dreams Unlimited Travel. You get the services of an expert agent who's going to help you navigate all the insanity, an expert agent like Miss Kathy Whirling right here, help you navigate all the insanity that can ensue with a Disney vacation. Plus, you're going to pay the same price you pay Disney. It's no more expensive to use a travel agent, and I didn't realize until a couple of years ago, most people didn't realize that. Most people thought that using a travel agent costs you more, and it does not. It does not. We're paid from Disney. We're not paid from you. So just keep that in mind.
I got a real nice letter from a client this morning that he just came back from his cruise, and I had made some suggestions and recommendations for his cruise, and it was his first cruise, and he couldn't get over, and he watches the podcast, but he was saying, how you always say about taking a cruise, and he just couldn't get over how good it was.
I just think, given the fact that, I know I say this all the time, I sound like a broken record, but whatever. Given the fact that the price of a cruise and price of Disney World, not much different. Not much different. I just think the cruise is easier. Mm-hmm. I just think it's easier, if
Nowadays,
nothing else.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And I think the level of service you get is better. So, just my opinion.
He had an experience in Palo that he wasn't exactly thrilled over. And I told him, well, let them know. I mean, that's what they're there for.
Exactly.
That's how are they going to, and you just proved it with, they got back to you and looked at all your reviews. So if they're going to try to improve.
Yeah, well, I have a...
Oh, yeah.
I have a megaphone.
Yeah. But I mean, they're always asking you when you're on the cruise, how was everything? And
if they don't know, they can't fix it.
Right, exactly.
They don't know, they can't fix it. I was happy to hear that because of our Palo review, they have put the mushroom risotto only on the Wish. They put the mushroom risotto back on the menu. So I am thrilled. That is, oh my God, the best risotto best risotto. But anyway, let's talk about other things. Let's start out with the Harmonious barge caught fire.
Oh, what a shame.
Is this God's way of saying stop that?
Well, it's the second fire to happen because of Harmonious within a short period of time. Part of the outdoor theater of America, the American Gardens Theater, had caught fire like not too long ago. It was probably a few months ago. I saw someone say this happened so close together, such a short amount of time. Two things, because of this fireworks show, catching on fire. If it's a sign, this is a sign.
Well,
I can remember one time taking a tour where we got to go see the barge that they said was what caught fire, and they made such a big deal about the safety precautions that they take. So it's like, so what happened?
and it also happened on a week where all the bigwigs were in town, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm.
All the bigwigs from California were in town. I wonder if they were watching when the barge caught fire.
It's important to note that it wasn't one of like the super large ones. It was the firework launching barge. So, but because of the way the fire looked, it looked like it was impacting one of those hideous, horrible, huge ones.
See, I
But
get
yeah.
that those are an eyesore. I get that those are an eyesore. I call them the Stargate barges. But I love the show. I think Harmonious is wonderful. I thought they did a great job with it. I know I'm in the minority.
I respect your opinion.
When
Your
it comes to
feelings
that.
are valid. Do I agree? No, but that's okay.
I just
I
find,
mean, would I rather Illuminations be back? Of course. But things have to change.
but Disney has always made a big deal about hiding things so that you're part of the experience and, line of sight. And when they're working on something, they put it behind a scrim or a wall. And then they put these barges out
Yeah,
there.
but that stopped. That attention to detail stopped years ago.
Yeah.
That stopped years ago.
Exactly. When the jokes of like the days that custodial would follow you around every time you dropped a piece of popcorn, when that idea kind of went away and we started realizing that Disney is more of a normal theme park than what we remembered it, in the past, what it was like, that's when stuff like the line of sight just got completely thrown out the window. And, it's one of those things where like I go to Epcot pretty often. How miserable do you have to be to stand somewhere around World Showcase and be like, this completely ruined my day. Having these barges sitting out here, this is exactly what has ruined my Epcot experience. It works well for the show. The show, I hated it first, and I have grown so attached to it. I think that the technology really does work. Could it be prettier? Yeah, absolutely it could. But if you're letting things like that ruin your Disney experience, then you're missing out on all the other little good things. But I will say, when things like line of sight starts to add up onto like 10 other things, then you really are starting to look at an inferior product. But, there's a lot that goes into that. But ultimately, I hate stuff like the fire because it's just one of those dumb things that happens now because of social media. I mean, we've seen it over the years. I think it was Seven Dwarfs Mine Train caught on fire. The top of the mountain caught on fire at
Right.
one point in
Yeah.
time from fireworks. Like it when you're working with explosives, sometimes these
Things
things
will go
are
wrong.
going to happen, and we live in an age where social media pushes it and makes it a bigger story than it needs to be. Yeah, there was a little fire. I'm sure no one got hurt. I'm sure it didn't impact the show in any big way. Can we move on? But not with
Is
this
that your
story.
way of telling me to move
No.
on to the next story?
I will move on, though. One of our Patreon supporters, Scott, did ask a question, though, about Harmonious. And we obviously know Harmonious is leaving, but they are, they're going to come out with a show for the 100th anniversary. And one thing Scott asked is, would we like to see drones as part of the new show replacing Harmonious like they've used in Disneyland Paris now? Or just more of a standard show? Do we want drones?
I'm not opposed to them.
Yeah, I'm not opposed. What they do in Disneyland Paris looks so cool. It looks so pretty. I would love to see that happen here if they could do it. It would just be the matter of, can it consistently work and look good? Can they make that a consistent thing where it's always cohesive and there aren't as many errors? And that would need a lot of practice. So I would love to see it. Is it going to happen? Don't know.
Well, I think drones have come a long way. Remember when they had the show at Disney Springs?
Disney Springs, yeah.
And it was like, okay. But I just saw on TV the other night some guy that owns a drone company that they had these people, and the drones were making like people and doing all this. And it's like, so drones have come a long way. So I think Disney could put that to good use and make a good story out of it, where before I thought they were sort of like a snooze. It's like, why bother?
I would be okay with drones, except I haven't seen any drone shows besides the Disney Springs one. And with that, you were told you want to stand at this particular area on the waterfront to watch and get the best view. With something like the World Showcase Lagoon, obviously you're watching a show from 360 degrees, and with that, I feel like that would require realistic looking 3D creations from a drone that I'm just not quite sure if those really work right now. Because, anytime you even see a drone show on TV, you see the flat static image, the perfect shot of them all.
Right.
So maybe that technology has come that far, and forgive me, I don't read up on my drone nighttime fireworks show technology magazines as much as I used to anymore. But yeah, I feel like unless they could perfect it so it looked perfect around all of the World Showcase, you're right back to the Harmonious problem where people are saying, well, you have to stand in this place to get the best view, otherwise it doesn't look great. So that's the only downside I see.
Or is it Disney doesn't have enough money to put into a drone show, or they don't want to put the money into it?
It's not that they don't have the money. I don't think
Well,
they're hard
no,
enough.
They don't want to
cash.
use
No,
it.
right. Like,
It's do they want to spend it?
Yeah.
right.
No. Now we'll see. We'll see. We'll see what they end up doing. But I just think it's telling that both Harmonious and the fireworks show at the Magic Kingdom, which were introduced for the 50th anniversary, will be changing for the 51st, or the 52nd.
Yeah.
So we'll see. Now this, just to let people know, we published our news stories in advance on our Patreon page, patreon.com/disunplugged. If you want to support us that way, that's a great way to do it too. So we're taking some questions from our Patreon subscribers. We are also taking questions, right, in the chat room?
Yeah, we forgot to mention that at the top of the show. Just like last week, drop your questions, and if there's any that stick out and help with our conversation or we'll add something else, Jackie will make sure that they get to Pete so we can bring them up.
Yeah, hopefully that it should work. Yes. Yeah, I should be getting text messages here. Okay. So let's talk about this next story, which I'm intrigued by. That a class action lawsuit has been filed against Disney World in the U.S. District Court Orlando Division on behalf of two individuals identified only as MP, a resident of Orange County, Florida, and EK of Palm Beach County, Florida. The lawsuit claims that Disney has exemplified, quote, predatory business practices in limiting annual pass holder access to the pandemic-born park reservation system, even when single-day entry remains obtainable. Now, I believe there is another class action lawsuit underway out in California for the same thing. Basically, what they're saying is that people bought their annual passes expecting access, and now that access is limited because, the park, let's remember, the park reservation system, are you going to cut back to me, or are we going to, okay. The park reservation system was supposedly to control crowds during COVID. Well, we've kind of gotten past that. Not that COVID still isn't a thing, but We're in a post-COVID world now. They've dropped mask requirements, they've dropped social distancing requirements, they've dropped all that stuff. Oddly enough, the one thing they haven't dropped is the park reservation system, which is not there to control crowds. I don't care what they say. Has nothing to do with that. They're not controlling crowds. It helps them count better. They know exactly how many people are in the park. This is all analytics and data that they use to, I mean, I'm sure they use it to staff up. If they know in advance we're going to have this many people in the park this day, they know to staff up in certain areas in certain ways. But let's be honest, that's not what this is for. That's not what this is for. And they've added this massive complication. I want to take my mother to Epcot for Candlelight Processional. She loves Candlelight Processional. We do it every year. And I have everything set up. It's just such a pain in the ass. It's not something she could do herself. Whereas maybe before this, if she had an annual pass, she could just
Wander on over.
Mm-hmm. But now there's this whole thing. I've got, I had to set her up in my Disney experience, and I had to do, all that stuff. And it's just, come on. Come on. So I think this is basically part of that frustration.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anyone who likes the Park Pass system. I don't think it has any fans that aren't Disney management. It certainly doesn't make the experience better. You are not managing crowds. That was the argument that has been made, that the biggest complaint was the parks are too crowded. You don't care about that.
But they could do that before. They had it maybe not as precise, but they knew from like resort reservations and things like that, like how busy their parks were going to be. And then you could throw in the wild card of, off-site guests, but they had a pretty good idea of how many people were going to be in the parks those days.
Yeah, that's why it's all BS. It's all BS. The whole park reservation system.
It just makes things a little harder. My mom, last time she came, she's DVC and an annual pass holder, doesn't even step foot into the parks right now. She's also one of those people that just stopped using a BlackBerry. So her and technology are not best friends. And she's like, it's just too much. I come to Disney to relax. I don't want to have to be on my phone trying to do everything. And I'm like, that's understandable, but if you want to go, this is what you have to do. And she's like, I'd rather go eat at Disney Springs, go shopping, hang out at some resorts, than have to go through that trouble to get into a park. So there's some trips where she's coming up here and doesn't use her annual pass. She'll just book a room with DVC and hang out around property because she doesn't want to have to learn the new systems unless I'm the one controlling it. Because obviously I know a little bit more with technology than she does, but it's just making it hard for some people. Like, it's just there's too many steps to get into the park. And like, my dad won't even come back. He only goes to Universal. He's like, I'm not doing the Genie stuff. I'm not doing the park reservations. I want to buy my ticket and just be able to walk in and just decide if I want to buy an express pass or not or whatever. He's like, at Universal, I don't mind waiting an hour in line. And at Universal, that's easy for me. So there's two sides to it.
And, I've talked about this before. We do a lot with DVC. I'm a DVC member. And we've been seeing more and more DVC members are using their DVC points to stay on property, and they're going to Universal. They're never stepping foot, as you said, with your mom. Never stepping foot in a Disney park. Because it's just easier. At the end of the day, it's just easier.
I think it's sort of sad that when you think back a couple years ago, that people were always like, oh, when's the dining plan coming out? And, oh, when's the discounts coming out? And, oh, Disney has to discount. Did you notice you don't hear that kind of stuff anymore? Now people are like, oh, I hope Disney comes out with a discount. Like, I'm sure somebody in corporate is not sitting there going, but the pandemic really did Disney a favor.
Oh, it was what they were. I'm not saying they were praying for a pandemic,
Right.
but this was the opportunity they've been waiting for to jack up the prices under the guise of controlling crowds. No, you just want to charge more and get more people in the parks. That's what you want to
And
do.
doing away with the discounts and the annual passes
And Fast Pass.
all that stuff, and it's sad. You know, I had a client this morning that goes, "We're going to want to get annual passes," and I'm like, "Well, good luck with that. You're not going to, you know."
There's a question from the chat from Doc Mario. Back in my day, Disney had a whole team dedicated to park attendance forecasting. So now that there's a reservation system, what does that team do? They've probably been cut. They've probably been cut. That they don't need forecasting anymore. They don't need it anymore. They have the ultimate forecasting tool. And, you know, a Disney executive said to me at one point, talking about Disneyland, never getting rid of the park reservation system. I know how many people are coming into the parks. I can control how many people are in the parks. But the thing is, you're not. You're not controlling the crowds. If the crowds in the parks were better than they were pre-pandemic, which they are not, if they were better than they were pre-pandemic, then I buy your argument that you're raising prices and implementing this system in order to control crowds. But you're not. You're not. You're raising prices to raise prices. You figure that for every one person who can't afford it, there's one person who can, and you'll get that person. So you're just getting more per guest, which I get. You're a publicly traded company. That's your job. That's your job. But do you have to be so craven about it? Do you have to be so craven about it? So nickel and dime about it? That's like I said, it's why I love Disney Cruise Line. I don't feel like I'm being nickeled and dimed. Is it expensive? Sure it is. A Disney cruise is more expensive than a Royal Caribbean cruise or a Carnival cruise, absolutely. The experience is also much better in my opinion. Not that Royal Caribbean is bad, but there's not that magic. There's not that magic. There's a reason we're Disney fans. There's a reason we go to Disney. That reason is alive and well on Disney Cruise Line.
Well, that's why I keep trying to convince my mom to go on a Disney cruise. I mean, she's not that far from Miami. The dream is there, and I think she'd have a blast.
Absolutely.
I'm trying to
And there are great
continue to go.
There are great Florida resident rates right now
Yeah.
available on the Dream out of Miami. I see them all the time. Kathy posts them every week. There are some great. I was surprised to see some military discounts on the Wish. I was very surprised to see that this past week.
Yeah.
That they're already doing discounts on the Wish. That makes me scratch my head a little bit.
Yeah.
That they're not filling the ship, because the only time they offer those types of military discounts, Florida resident rates, things like that, when they haven't filled the ship and they need to, and they need to. But
Well, look what they did with Genie Plus, too. It went from 15 a day to now it's like 20 some a day. It's like, come on. Really? You really need to do that? Or, you know, when it gets to be around Christmas time, it's going to be $30 a day.
at least,
Yeah. I know they're going to set new records for that, but it's like, why?
I've been saying it for a long time. I think it needs to be more. I think the problem is Genie Plus is a product that it will work at its best when you limit the amount of people who are truly coughing up money for it. So, yeah, I know people still have the mindset that Genie Plus is just the next evolution of FastPass, but they would be better going the universal model and just saying, yeah, it's $150 a day per person. Do you want it or not? There are still going to be people who buy it. There's going to be a lot of people who buy it and complain about it. That will effectively eliminate any idea of FastPass from anyone's mind who remembered it in the past. But, you know, it's also a generational thing. There will always be us sitting here screaming, like, I remember back in the day when fast passes were free. And the new group will now be like, yeah, I remember when they were like $15 a day. And eventually it will just be the norm. It will take a while. They will lose a lot of people in between. But there's still people showing up to the parks.
Look, everybody needs to get it through their heads. This has been made clear. Walt Disney World does not care about your experience. They don't care.
But isn't that sad? Because
It is incredibly sad. It is incredibly sad. But it's also the reality that the sum total of their decisions with raising prices, the introduction of Genie Plus, the increase in price of Genie Plus, the increase of price, the price of hotel rooms alone, yet we don't see a commensurate increase in value, in excellence, in service, in any other area. It's basically a little less than what you had pre-pandemic at a much higher price. And everything has been focused on the price, and everything has been focused on adding to the cost. Not very much has been done to add to the value of what you're getting for that money. You're basically saying a lesser product than what we had 2 years ago is worth a lot more than it was 2 years ago. That message sent. We don't care about your experience. We just care about how much money we can get out of it.
I feel like nowadays it's almost like if you're a true Disney fan or a legacy Disney fan, whatever you want to call us, like I feel like I need to go be deprogrammed and like have a new chip put in, like, well, that was Disney.
That was the old Disney.
You know, that was 1995 Disney when you came, that you spent your money and you moved to Florida and you did all these things. And now it's like, we just want your money. We don't want, you know, when I think of the experiences and the feels that you got when you came, and, you know, the magical moments. When was the last time you heard about a magical moment at Disney World? You know, that used to be a thing.
That used to be a regular event.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like...
And I'm sure they still happen. Look. I'm talking about Disney management. I'm not talking about the cast members on the ground.
Oh, right. Most
Okay?
definitely.
And the cast members on the ground that are trying their best
They're doing everything they can.
to make
Everything
it
they
as
can.
good as possible. So I'm not talking about the cast members on the ground. And they take the brunt of this. They take the brunt of this. I'm talking about management.
Yeah, I'm proud. I have 2 kids that are cast members. You know, I think they have that spirit within them of trying to make sure that they have those special moments, or, you know, that it's special that you're here, and let me make sure you have a nice day while you're here. So in my case, it's like, it's not just me that's a Disney fan. I've got 2 kids that try to go out and make it better for lots of people.
Allison asked the question, don't you agree that eventually Disney will be an exclusive members-only club for the elite? Basically pay a yearly price to come and that's it.
I hope not.
I don't know that it'll ever go to that level. I think it'll feel like it.
Mm-hmm.
I think it'll look like it. Whether or not it'll be actually be codified in practice, I don't know. I doubt. But let's be honest. They're pricing a lot of people out. And I think that's giving opportunity to the other theme parks in this town.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I keep saying it. Universal's about to open another gate. They're about to open another gate. And I think it's going to be a game changer. And I don't think Disney has an answer.
I agree. I don't think they have a response to what Universal's about to do.
Well, based on D23, where it was, we might do this, we might add this, We could possibly, we're thinking
Oh,
about doing this.
1,010,000 different ifs and what ifs. That's all we really got from that. So
At this point, given when Epic Universe is going to open, they should be announcing, we're doing this, we're
Yes.
doing this, we're doing this.
Yeah, but I feel like sometimes we have the same repetition with this over and over, though. Universal does not offer a product that is accommodating to everyone the same way Disney's pricing is not accommodating to everyone. So you're going to get a bunch of people going to Universal who can't fit on the rides, who can't do a lot, who just can't handle that type of more thrilling theme park. And that's why, like, we have Kathy here. I'm not trying to make fun of Kathy. Universal, even though Kathy could definitely afford it more than Disney, will never be a park that she enjoys going to because she, like all of us, are addicted to Disney in that way. So there is nothing, save for Universal buying Disney and converting all their parks to Figment Paradise, there is nothing they could ever do to win over the Kathys of the world. And there's a lot of those people out there. There are
That's
a
true.
ton.
That's true.
Well, when I first started coming to Disney, we would go spend half of our time at Universal. We thought going to Universal was just wow. And then, Disney overtook us. I don't know what happened there, but, Disney in my mind is...
But more and more people,
Oh, yeah.
more and more people that were Disney only have started trying Universal. We see that, like I said, I've talked about it, I see that from the travel agency side, how much our Universal business has
Oh, yeah.
increased. So, Arlene Carter asks, any concerns Walt Disney World will limit vloggers? I don't see how they can.
I don't think they will.
I don't see how they can.
I love Arlene, but this is like one of the questions that I hate more than anything else. Vloggers are not this big problem. If you wanted to call out who's the biggest group of people going to Disney, it would be people with families. And like, no one says like, well, will Disney stop letting families in to help control that problem? It's just, you can't pick out any one group, and people will always find a way around rules.
I think this harkens back to the Harmonious story, that you talking about social media being part of the problem, amplifying events like the fire. And with Disney, I don't see how they could.
Yeah, and you have to also see the point that it would be dumb if Disney did, because those vloggers and TikTokers, it's like free marketing for Disney. When I lived in South Florida, all I did was watch vlogs because all I wanted to do was be here, and it made me, go to my mom and be like, please, 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 can we go again? Can we go again? Like, can we book it for my birthday now? I want a countdown. That'll never stop. They can't stop that, because that is what gets more people wanting to come back or to at least visit once. It's not going to stop.
Yeah. And like, as Erica said, it's free advertisement. Back in the days, it was, Disney advertised in all these different ways. It was word of mouth from the families that you knew that came back and talked about what they did on their Walt Disney World vacation, seeing it on TV shows with the special I'm going to Walt Disney World vacations. If you knew that they had a VHS, later a DVD that they would send to your house where you could just absorb it in. Those are all the ways before internet really even that you used to get excited and get that advertisement about Disney on top of TV commercials. And now you have YouTube, TikTok, the most watched platform, just filled with people promoting the parks for better or for worse. But yeah, they can never pull a plug on this. And then also too, how do you start policing the difference between you're doing this as a vlogger and to raise money, and you're doing this as a way to just capture your family memories? Then all of a sudden we have a police force in Walt Disney World going around to each person asking them what their purpose is and what they're doing. It's just, it can't happen. But Patreon wanted to know with it too, with all this annual pass holder talk specifically, do we think that a lot of these issues, people trying to force lawsuits, do we think this will be another step in the official end of annual passes completely?
I think that's a possible outcome. I think Disney would love to do away with annual passes. I don't really see how they could, because the local market, especially out in California, those are the crowds, is the local market. It's not a huge tourist destination. It's a locals park. Even here, locals make up a considerable number of people who are annual pass holders. I don't see them being able, I think they would love to, but they would have to come up with some other product that would replace it.
I think they're doing a pretty good job of killing the annual passes. I still have the top tier, whichever one
Yeah,
it
me
is.
too.
And you look at some of the other ones, it's like, well, you can come in on a Tuesday after, it's like, do you remember the days when people would go like, well, let's see, if I go for 10 days, I'm going to get, my annual pass is going to pay for itself.
Yep.
I don't ever hear anybody saying that nowadays, because what the product is left of annual passes, it's like, is it really worth even having that? And I mentioned last week that there was an annual pass discount come out. I didn't have anybody that had an annual pass.
Let's take some questions from the chat room. Connor Noblet, do you think if enough of the general public makes a fuss about the reservations, it will change? No. No, I don't. I think if enough people stop going and it impacts their bottom line, it's like anything else. If it impacts their bottom line and the feedback they're getting is that it's too complicated to go to your parks, then it will change. But just making a fuss, no. Tidal Wave 1. Will Disney go through recession? Yes and no. Generally speaking, with the recessions that have happened, at least while I've been doing this, they're pretty immune. They'll feel it, but it won't be. Disney is still a rite of passage to a lot of families. Still a rite of passage. So I don't think it would have a massive impact. I think what if anything, what the recession would cause, if they did see a slowdown, is then they'll jack up prices. They'll jack up prices. The days of free dining, the days of those kind of discounts, the days of a dining plan at all are over. It's not coming back. Tables in Wonderland is not coming back. And if there is anything I hope I'm wrong on, it's that. I hope the dining plan comes back. I hope Tables in Wonderland comes back. I hope I'm wrong, but I don't think I am. I think that's part of the old mentality. That's part of the old mentality. Then there's a new way of doing things now.
Talking about new way of doing things, I know Bob Chapek gets a lot of grief that he's the figurehead for all this stuff. And we have Josh Tomorrow, the other guy. Is he ever gonna take some heat, or how is that ever gonna
look? I've talked about it. I know Josh. I consider Josh a friend. But I lay this at his feet. He's chairman of Parks and Resorts. A lot of these decisions being made are coming from him. But he doesn't answer to us. He answers to his stockholders. He answers to his board of directors. Those are his bosses, not us. And I know Josh when I tell you this is a really good guy, this is a really good guy.
Oh, I definitely agree with that, yes.
Okay? As a human being, this is a really, really good guy. Did I expect better from him taking over this role? Yes, I did. I did. Have I been disappointed? Yeah, I have been. I have been. Still love him. Still think he's a great guy. I just wish different decisions were being made. I just wish different decisions were being made.
It's all very difficult too with Disney and Disney fans because there are a lot of people in our level of fandom that are obsessed with the Chapeks and the Damaros and that category of executive, and we know what they have power over. And you know what, I'll even say that over, like, you see it over the years in every form of media too. Hollywood Reporter, Deadline, all the news outlets will mention all the executives by name, as they should. That's what they cover with it. But it's funny on the flip side with Universal. Like, when they went through the rough years of adding in Jimmy Fallon, Fast and Furious Supercharged, whereas just one crappy train wreck after another, you hear fans of Universal who are frustrated at the park for not listening to them to what attractions they want, but no one is going out and name dropping and saying, you know what, it's ever since Brian Roberts became Comcast CEO, everything's just gone downhill. You don't hear it from
Universal
that. It's
does
so
not,
weird.
Universal does not enjoy the fanatical support that Disney does.
Yeah,
They have a fan base, to be sure, but it's not at the level that Disney has.
Yes and no. Yes and no. If you spend a day in Universal's annual pass holder Facebook group, their annual pass holders, and I include myself in them in this group, is completely psychotic in the weirdest ways. And Universal does have that, and that's the group that's most likely to know.
I'm not saying
about
they
this.
don't have a fan base. I'm saying it's not the size, scope, and depth that Disney has.
But that's also part of this too, then. If we're saying that, eventually we think market share will take over and all these Disney fans who were the diehard ones who pay attention to this stuff starts focusing on these other products, I'm also intrigued if they're ever going to look at Universal in the same way too, saying, I need names. I need to know who's responsible for ruining this the same way. So I'm just saying this more as like a hypothetical thing. I wonder if that changes.
With the exception of Brian Roberts, I couldn't name anybody at Universal.
I'm the host of the Universal show, and I don't even remember. Like, obviously, Bill Davis did a great job running the parks, and Tom Williams was a big cog in that too, but it's just Universal does not promote their executives as these are great people. Like, even Bill Davis, who ran the parks for a long time, Universal's parks, he wasn't really even a big thing until like the whole Velocicoaster. He was standing with churros and helping out for all that, and then finally people were like, oh, Universal's boss, he's a good guy. So it's so weird how they're so different.
All right, slightly different tack from Tasha Cleland. Question: if you could only do one table service restaurant inside the parks during our trip, which should it be out of all 4 parks? I know what mine is, but we'll start with you, Eric.
I have to think. Don't go to me
Okay.
first.
All right. Craig?
I don't have an answer. It's one of those ones I need to think about in for 20 minutes.
Well, you don't have 20 minutes.
I pass.
Great. Really?
Oh,
Am I the only person
no.
with an answer?
My favorite's still Ohana.
It's
Inside the parks.
In the parks.
Oh, inside the parks, beer garden.
Really?
Yes.
I think you might be the only person on the planet that would answer that way.
No,
I can
love
say
Beer
mine's not
Garden.
that.
I love Beer Garden, but it's definitely going to be in Epcot.
See, mine isn't.
I would say nostalgic me would say Le Cellier, because I always ate there growing up. Love that place. But now, to me, it's Spice Road Table. If I'm going to eat anywhere at Walt Disney World, I'm going to eat at Spice Road Table.
But you
Anywhere at
also
the park.
eat like branches and berries.
Yeah, but I love Dapa's style food, and they have the shrimp and the hummus fries, and it's so good. Spice Road Table. That's my answer.
Okay. My personal opinion, based on consistency over the years, the best in-park table service restaurant you can find at Walt Disney World, and maybe anywhere, is Hollywood Brown Derby. Hollywood Brown Derby.
Never been there.
Such a phenomenal restaurant. And I love the fact that they really appreciate their history, the history of the Hollywood Brown Derby restaurant, and they try and run it the way that restaurant was run. They try and bring in all the elements that made that restaurant unique. You know, that's where the Cobb salad was born. I believe that's where they started putting caricatures of celebrities on the walls. And it was picked up by Sardi's in New York. Now, I think that's how it went. It may be the other way around, that it started with Sardi's and Hollywood Brown Derby picked it up. But either way, you go into either of those restaurants, you would see characters on the wall. You still do at Sardi's, which I love, by the way. Sardi's in New York, if you're doing Broadway. I know it's touristy, but it's such a great experience. But for me, it's Hollywood Brown Derby. Have you had any time, Craig?
No, I'm trying to fight some fires here.
Okay.
Just fix some other things. So
Okay.
go talk amongst yourselves.
So Craig has no response.
That is on my bucket list, though. Brown Derby.
Brown Derby? Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's a great restaurant. It's a great restaurant.
Beer garden for me was always not necessarily that the food was that great, but the atmosphere.
The atmosphere is incredible.
You know,
The
and that
show
when
is
you're
so good.
and you bring people to Disney for like the first time, it's like, let me take you to this place, and you know, you just come out having a good time. And I can remember my son, we took him there for his 21st birthday, and he's like, don't you tell him it's my birthday. And they announced up on the stage that it was my son's birthday, and he stood up, and it's like, see, it can get to everybody. It's like, wow, look, see, they're going to do something for me because it was my birthday. I love that place.
I also think that it's one of the most like immersive dining experiences.
It is.
I love sitting in there. And you know what? I can eat a lot of things there. They are very accommodating with allergies, but God, I love that restaurant. I really do. It's a soft spot for me. Always went there as a kid too. My dad. Anytime we go to Epcot, that was lunch.
Sounds like you're changing your answer from Le Cellier to...
No, it's both.
It's both. Okay.
Go to both.
So there's your answer. You have Le Cellier, you have Beer Garden, you have Hollywood Brown Derby.
But do you remember when Le Cellier used to be like the hot restaurant?
Your vacation was ruined
If you didn't
did
get
not
there.
get your priority seating to Le Cellier. I remember that. I also remember when Cinderella's Royal Table, if you didn't get that reservation.
And they had a whole group of angels or whatever that would go in every morning and try to get dining reservations for people. And it's like, really? I still haven't been to Cinderella's Royal Table, but it's...
I did.
You haven't?
I did it twice. I've done it twice, and from a food perspective,
You don't go to that for the food.
yeah, but you pay for it.
I know. I haven't gone in a long time. I haven't been there probably since maybe 2016, 2015. But I just love being inside the castle. But I don't think the pricing isn't worth for the food. But to be in the castle and see all
Oh,
the
yeah.
princesses, I get so excited.
All right, one other thing I want to switch gears here and talk about this Tim Burton's comments. Director Tim Burton, who's, of course, Alice in Wonderland, Dumbo, Nightmare Before Christmas, among many others, that he's done for Disney, at least. He was on a panel at the Lumiere Film Festival in Lyon, France, over the weekend, and made some unexpected comments about his relationship with Disney. He spoke candidly about how his partnership with Disney has evolved since his years as a young animated filmmaker. He used to work as an animator for Disney, noting that the studio is now primarily focused on Marvel, Pixar, and Star Wars franchises. Quote, "It's gotten to be very homogenized, very consolidated. There's less room for different types of things," Burton said before going on to confess he would never consider being part of a Marvel movie. I can only deal with one universe. I can't deal with a multi-universe. He said, my history is I started out there. I was hired and fired like several times throughout my career there. The thing about Dumbo, the movie, is that's why I think my days with Disney are done. I realized that I was Dumbo, that I was working in this horrible big circus and I needed to escape. That movie is quite autobiographical at a certain level. So he had no plans. He says he has no plans being part of the long-awaited sequel, Beetlejuice 2. However, that's another film he was responsible for. However, the statement was walked back the following day.
Of course
when
it was.
Burton later admitted nothing was out of the question. I think that would be a great loss to Disney. Mm-hmm. I mean, I love Tim Burton. I love his stuff. I love Nightmare Before Christmas. That's a regular Halloween/Christmas movie for me. But he seems unenchanted with his experience at Disney.
This might be a bold statement for me, but now that Fox is owned by Disney, it's a lot harder to say it, but I feel like he needs Disney, or Disney needs him more than he needs Disney. They
really? You think with the success they've had with Marvel, Star Wars?
No, in terms of an actual filmmaker, they need Tim Burton for stuff. I mean, Alice in Wonderland basically launched their entire obsession with redoing all of the animated movies. I'm sure it was on the docket before, but when that made over $1 billion, that solidified. He's been able to do his passion projects in between some of the other things they wanted him to do. It's because like Nightmare, we can look at the legacy of that too, but he didn't direct the movie. It's his creative vision and he was the producer on it, but that was Henry Selick's movie, and they allowed him to do Frankenweenie after years and years and years. They made him do the sequel for Alice. Maybe he wanted to do it, maybe he didn't. Dumbo, like Disney, I feel like Disney's always been more like, we want to pull you in, but he didn't necessarily ever really need them. But then again, on the flip side of that, the movies that he's made for other studios, they haven't always done fantastically well too. So I think they're just in an abusive relationship, and
well, I think he's walking back those comments because he realized, well, this is a big payday.
Yeah, that too.
On the other side of some of these movies,
I don't think you want to say no to Disney. You want to always have them there. If you see that you're going to be a little short this quarter, oh, hey, let me go do a project with them.
Yeah. Any questions from Patreon?
With this, that the only question about Tim Burton with this was, besides Nightmare Before Christmas, do we have any favorite Tim Burton movies that he made for Disney? Since he really hasn't made a lot.
No, he hasn't.
My only one is Frankenweenie. I love that. But that's it.
My favorite Tim Burton is Nightmare Before Christmas. Close second is Beetlejuice. And Beetlejuice wasn't Disney.
Warner Brothers.
So...
yeah. It made big headlines because someone like Tim Burton, that is a recognizable director name, saying something disparaging against Disney. Mm-hmm. Of course, that's going to shoot out there, but it's kind of one of those things. If it was a busier news cycle, who knows if anyone would have even picked up on it at all. It might have just got swept under the rug. If Harry Styles spit on another person, we would never be hearing about that right now.
Do you have anything else from Patreon we haven't gotten to?
Well, they asked questions solely based around the topics that we gave them for what we were doing for today's show.
Okay.
So
do we have any questions on the DVC one? I'm not sure if I'm going to do that one.
A lot of the questions based around the DVC one was, do you find value in DVC that warrants the price increase? What do you think the price point will be for the Disneyland Towers? And Do you feel Disney needs to offer annual passes to
Okay,
members
so let's
before
talk
the
about the
increase?
story. The story is that there's a rumor that they're going to do a massive price increase for Disney Vacation Club, $10 a point, which is a considerable hike historically. That will take it up to, I believe, $217 a point. Yeah, $217 a point. At the villas at Disney's Grand Floridian, Disney's Riviera Resort, and Aulani. Why they keep raising the price on Aulani? They can't sell it out. I have no idea why. Do I think there's value to justify that? Do I think there's value? Look, the reason they're doing this is they're getting the price in line for when they announce their opening sales for the Disneyland Tower, the Disneyland DVC Tower at the Disneyland Hotel. That's why they're doing this. I knew some kind of price increase was going to come before that happens. And we're probably still a few months out before that goes on sale, but they're getting their ducks in a row now. And I think we may even see another price increase. Do I think there's value in it? The only reason to buy direct from DVC is to get the membership extras. That's access to the special after-hours parties they run in the park, some of the discounts that they offer, things like that. Access to the Top of the World Lounge at Bay Lake Tower, access to the Members Lounge in Epcot. Those are all restricted to people who have purchased direct through Disney. I do not believe the direct price warrants paying that. Right now on the resale market, they're charging $217 a point for Aulani. On the resale market, you can pick it up for $138 a point.
Wow.
Okay? Exact same points. You can't use them at Riviera. That's the big restriction. If you buy resale, you can't use them at Riviera or any of the new resorts that are coming online. That was something they did a few years ago. But that's the price difference. $138 a point on the resale market versus $217 a point now, or soon, going direct. Is it really worth $70 a point to be able to get into Top of the World Lounge? That's a question you have to ask yourself. Do I think there's value in DVC generally? Of course. I wouldn't have the number of points I have. I love DVC, and I live in Orlando.
I remember when you didn't have it.
Yeah, it wasn't that long ago. It was
No.
only about 3 years ago that I started collecting DVC points like they were Pokemon. But I love DVC. I'm a huge fan. Not a huge fan of the management, but I'm a huge fan of the product. I'm a huge fan of the product.
Could they, since I don't really know a lot about DVC, with all the perks that you get, like the top of the
Top of the World Lounge.
can that eventually go away, or do you sign something when you buy your
All
points?
perks are subject to change.
Okay.
All perks. In the early days, in the beginning, in the time before time, when DVC was only Old Key West, you used to get annual passes. You used to get either annual passes or tickets to the park. Came with like every year you got.
Oh, wow.
They eventually obviously stopped that. But look, the resorts you get to stay in, it is a hedge against inflation. Some people argue with me on that. Because the value of your points never changes. Okay? They can't decide, it's busier this time of the year than we thought it was going to be, so next year we're going to raise the number of points you need. Now they can do that. They can say, okay, this week we're adding 10 points a night to this studio, but in order to do that, they have to take 10 points a night away from something else. There's only a certain number of points they're
Okay.
allowed to use. They can never go over that. So there always is that the value that you buy in at is the value you get, and it stays that way regardless of what happens with inflation. So if you know you're going to Disney World twice a year, you're throwing money away. And I say this as somebody who owns a travel agency. You're throwing money away on a hotel when you could be putting that into DVC and you actually have a real estate interest. You actually own something.
Yeah.
And this stuff keeps its value. Talk to somebody who bought Animal Kingdom Lodge 5 years ago and paid $90 a point. Now it's worth 100. I don't know what it's at now, but let's say 140. Stories like that. I've bought stuff in the last 3 years that I turned around and sold and made money on. Not that that's why I buy it, but it's nice to know it holds its value.
Right.
It holds its value. It's not like a car where you drive it off the lot, you've already lost value in it.
Well, we've been a DVC family since 1998, and I can say that I think it's worth it. I love DVC. I love the product. All of my childhood memories are at different DVC resorts, and I'm very lucky and blessed for that. But seeing, we went twice a year, and it was the best thing for my mom to do, and she loves still being a DVC member till this day. So I think the product is worth it.
Okay.
I love DVC.
You can learn more about DVC on our other sister website, dvcfan.com, or watch the shows we do on YouTube, youtube.com/DVCfan. I get confused. At DVC Fan, we have them on Facebook. There are groups, great groups. DCL Fan, DVC Fan. If you're not familiar with those, especially if you're planning a cruise or you're thinking about Disney Vacation Club, is a great places to go ask questions. And they're really, really friendly groups. Really, really friendly groups. So, all right, that, folks, is going to do it for this week's show. We hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back with you again next Tuesday with another episode of the Diz Unplugged. Have a great week, and remember, stay out of the damn lakes.